Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about your wartime diary, Jeff. It's caused a lot of excitement, both within the family and to other people that we've spoken to. So, I guess the best place to start would be, how did you come to have the book in the first place?
The book came from the YMCA, the Young Men's Christian Association, who issued these rather like Red Cross parcels. And I don't honestly know whether it was British or Canadian. We used to get a lot of Red Cross parcels from Canada as well as from Britain.
Yeah.
But it just says that when I received it, when I got into Stourborough 3, it was one of the things which was provided at that time.
And what else did you get along with the book?
Towels, socks,
And that was about it?
the toothbrush, and that was about it. Yeah.
So everybody got one of these, and did they all use them?
I don't know. Some did, some didn't.
And what was the purpose of, for you, of the book?
Well, it's called a wartime log, and so I thought it would be worthwhile just recording various things about my life in camp, and then when it came to the eventual marching out of the camp in winter, to keep a log of the events of that situation. And then again in the spring, when we marched out again, I did the same again then.
So what was the time frame between, it was sort of July, June, July time that you got captured, wasn't it?
June when I got captured, and I got to Stourborough 3 in early August.
Were you still injured or sort of?
No, I was then mobile. I'm no longer hobbling a bit.
So where had you been in the interim between, where had they taken you from the island of Brack up until you ended up in the prisoner of war camp?
Well, I spent quite a bit of time in German first aid posts going through Yugoslavia, eventually with the object of taking me to a main hospital in Belgrade. And so I spent various days in travelling with the German wounded, and until my wounds turned septic, and so I was no longer able to move. So they took me off the road there, and I spent some time in a little first aid post, I suppose you would call it, where they treated me for get rid of the septic wounds, and then when I was fit enough, I moved on again. By that time, the German prisoners who were wounded at the same time as I was, had moved on. They were no longer there. I was on my own, and.
So why did they take you as and not? Were there lots of other Allied wounded as well?
No.
So it was just you on your own?
Yeah.
Everyone else was dead? Or had escaped?
The others were taken prisoner or dead.
And were you given any special treatment? Because they didn't know who you were, did they?
They knew that I was an officer, and that was all. And they probably knew that we were commandos originally, or the people the Germans that captured me, because they knew that the only Allied troops in the Mediterranean or in the Adriatic at that time were commandos operating with the partisans. But whether that information was forwarded on or not, I don't know. I rather doubt it.
Why do you doubt it?
because when I was eventually interrogated in Hungary, all the interrogator wanted to know was whether I'd flying a British or American plane, assuming that I had been shot down over over Hungary,
Yeah.
or that area there.
And what form did your interrogation take?
Oh, question and answer situation. Where did you come from? And what were your unit, etc. But we were only allowed to give name, rank, and number, and so that proved a little bit puzzling because I hadn't got I was a lieutenant. I could assumed to be a flyer as a lieutenant, I suppose, flight lieutenant. But when it came to saying anything about squadrons or that, well, I couldn't give that information anyway.
Yeah.
So it was left to them to judge for themselves where I had come from.
Did they rough you up at all?
No, no, other than solitary confinement in a rather scruffy cell and bare boards.
Yeah.
And
how long were you in that for?
about a week, I suppose, something like that. Just over a week.
And what was that like?
Uncomfortable with the big buds at night.
Having a good feast on you.
Nuisance, biting like mad.
Was this the time you were telling us about, that when you were being moved from place to place, that you were sometimes in these convoys that were attacked by the Spitfires and things?
Yeah.
Where did that happen?
That happened on the road up through Moscow and Sarajevo, en route eventually to finish up in Belgrade.
Yeah.
But they died out eventually. That was soon after I was captured. And the convoy that I was in at that time, well, that all disappeared, of course, when I was left on the wayside. And so we didn't get any more strafing after that.
So it sounds quite a lonely thing. Were you the only person that could speak English around you?
Apart from the odd German, yeah.
And did they talk to you?
Very briefly. Very briefly.
And were these soldiers as well?
Sorry?
Were these soldiers as well?
No, mostly medical staff, doctors.
And how were they towards you, generally?
Very polite. Very, in fact, I used to get mistaken for being a German.
Did you?
It's understandable in a way.
And why was that?
Well, we were some way from any front line then, and the only other casualties were Germans, and they were mainly non-wounds casualties at that time. The others had moved on, so I suppose it was easy to assume that I was a German. My hair was fairly blonde at that time, bleached with the sun, blue eyes, so I could be mistaken for German.
And didn't somebody extend some kindness to you, one of the nurses or something, when you were...
That was in Belgrade, in the... that was in Belgrade. in the hospital there, and that was the nurse who was looking after me, and I've got it here actually. She wrote out Lily Marlene for me.
And that was a popular song at the time, was it?
That was a popular song at the time. Sister Maria Bloom.
And why did she write that out for you, do you think?
I think as a little bit of a morale booster. She was quite a cheerful sort of person.
And could she speak English?
No, not really. No, it's mainly just a few words. And,
So there you are, lying all beaten up with your blonde hair and blue eyes, and some German woman falls in love with you.
yeah,
That's fantastic, isn't it?
yeah. Yes.
And how long were you in
That was in the hospital in Belgrade, the main hospital, base hospital.
Yeah. And when did you start to feel a bit better and recovered from your wounds? Because it sounds like you had some complications. And when did you start to feel a bit better?
When I was in the hospital in Belgrade, recovered then. That's when wounds were being treated daily, and slowly got healed.
And how long were you in the hospital in Belgrade?
About 3 weeks, I think.
And the food was all right there, was it?
Yes, got reasonable food there. Not bad. Could go on with that.
Were you under guard at that time as
yes, under guard, but in a ward with German flyers who'd been shot down over Yugoslavia, and they were all casualties from parachuting down and broken legs, or one had lost an arm.
And how did they relate to you, being in their ward as such, with them?
A bit of a joke, actually. They were a bit suspicious at first,
Right.
because they didn't know I was a foreigner, really, as far as they were concerned, and they wondered whether I might have been planted in there, because they had another chap in the ward there, whose name was Smith, and he was a bit of an obscure individual who they didn't know where he'd come from. He wasn't able to relate, or didn't relate to anything that they said. And so they treated him with a bit of suspicion, but eventually they warmed, and I got on all right with them in the end.
There was no sort of bullying or
No,
anything like that?
No. They used to take the mickey a bit when I called. Said I had, on one occasion, had referred to aluminium, and they fell about laughing.